Edmund Sears was born on April 6, 1810. He grew up, guess where? In the Berkshire Hills of Massachusetts. His father was a lover of poetry, and Edmund fell in love with poetry too. He wrote that when at work, some poem was always singing through his brain. Not uncommon for Unitarians at the time, he was instilled with the importance of moral duty, or doing what's right because it's right. While he loved school, his work on the family farm prevented him from attending school regularly. In 1831, he was able to go to Union College in Schenectady, New York. There, he continued to get prizes for his poetry accomplishments. After graduation, like a lot of young people, Edmund tried several different professions. He went to law school for about 9 months, he went up to Vermont and started teaching, and finally, he began to study the ministry at the Unitarian Church of Brattleboro. Later, he entered the theological school in Cambridge, Massachusetts. The American Unitarian Association sent Edmund out as a missionary to the new frontier of Toledo, Ohio. In 1838, he received his first traditional pulpit at the First Congregational Church in Wayland, Massachusetts. He became their settled minister and loved the small parish life in Wayland. While he liked his small congregation, he needed a more prosperous job to support his growing family. He moved on to the Congregational Church in Lancaster. Unfortunately, though, he needed to leave the congregation soon after he arrived due to vocal illness and depression. He returned back to Wayland to rest and recover. While he recovered, he went back to working at that small parish he loved and spent a lot of his time writing. His poetry led him to write lyrics for music. He wrote the Christmas carol, "It Came Upon a Midnight Clear." The song, sentimental, slow, and slightly dark, relayed what Edmund was feeling about the world at that moment, that it was filled with sin and strife and not the Christmas spirit. While this Christmas hymn is more humanist in nature, Edmund's own beliefs were much more centered on the teachings of Jesus than many other Unitarians of any time. Edmund wrote several books and was considered very conservative, if not orthodox, in most Unitarian churches. He was respected, though, by his contemporaries, such as Samuel Atkins Eliot and Lydia Marie Child. They did not always agree with his conclusions, but they viewed him as an eloquent thinker. After the fugitive slave law passed, Edmund went to his pulpit and, again, pulling on the moral law of his youth, made clear that when the human and divine laws were in conflict, it was the duty of all to obey the latter. At the end of the Civil War, Edmund retired from his pulpit and turned to writing full-time. He was a powerful evangelical conservative writer and thinker that, while he conflicted with many other Unitarian churches, they always worked to remain in covenant and communication together. In 1874, Edmund, while traveling in Europe, fell from a tree. Now, what we might call traumatic brain injury, Edmund was never free from illness after his fall. He died on January 16, 1876. Edmund Sears' work lives on as we sing his Christmas carol each year, reminding us to turn from sin and strife in the world around us and towards the larger Christmas message of hope and peace.